All right. Ready?
Ready?
You good, Pete?
Sorry, you're after a verbal confirmation. Yes. Sorry.
You always do. Anyway. G'day everyone and welcome to a very special finals episode of Got the 4 Points. And that's right, there are not one, not two, but three people on this episode. We are very excited to be joined by a new member of the Got the 4 Points family. Clay Fleming has jumped on with us now, mate. You are fresh off a very exciting day yesterday watching your local team get the 4 points, so to speak, in the grand final. How are you?
Very much so, yes. Feeling well, boys. How we going?
Doing very well. Very glad to have you on. Yeah, no, great to have you on. So you've been a long-time listener, oftentimes contributor. We're very grateful to that. Yeah, and first-time caller, first-time official on the show. When Pete and I started this podcast late last year, we did a little intro to ourselves, I guess, and a little intro to our interest in local footy and our involvement, our glories, our past reminiscences of glory days in local footy. So give us your best 30 seconds on your interest, your love of local footy, your involvement, and your current interests as they are now.
Yeah, fantastic. So we've all known each other for, I was doing the maths, 20 years now, which is a frightening number. So I grew up in, first of all, Creswick in primary school and then Clunes secondary school age. So I grew up going with Dad to the local footy, watching the Creswick Saints play. We used to go down probably most weeks through the football season to Creswick. And then into high school, played for Clunes Magpies. Ended up not having the body for it, so that definitely was never going to be a long-term prospect, but would run their boundary umpiring and stuff like that. So I was quite often still around the club, even if I wasn't playing. So I've been probably out of the local football game for a little while, but now having since moved to Skipton, trying to get back involved a little bit more going forward. And as Rob mentioned, some good success yesterday, watching the Skipton Emus win their first premiership in the Central Highlands Football League yesterday. So it was an exciting day that we got to go to that together, and yeah, had a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah, good to have you on board, as we said. Pete, how are you, mate? How's your week been?
Yeah, doing well, thanks, Rob. Yeah, it's been another big week of finals footy, and we're starting to edge towards the closure of most local footy leagues across Victoria. I reckon there's still a handful that are yet to have played their grand finals, but there's also been a handful that have played across the last couple of weekends. So I think we've got a bumper episode that we probably need to get into so that we can make sure we cover as much as we possibly can.
Good pointer. Let's get on with it. We have a lot of grand finals to cover. There's some coming up, as you said. Quick reminder, find us on Instagram at Got the 4 Points. We are as Got the 4 Points on YouTube and Spotify as well. We're going to try and get through another couple of episodes as these grand finals wrap up. But this is going to be a bumper, as you said, Pete. I'm going to throw to you first. We're just going to go round the grounds, I think. So take us to your first summary.
Yeah, and also, as you said, Rob, episode 23, so Buddy Franklin episode, and that's good territory to be in, the old 23. But I'm going to take us, Rob, no big surprise, VAFA, a little bit of a pet topic for us for VAFA, across all of their grades and divisions and where finals are at. Very quickly, A grade, just they are one of the few that just started their finals series on the weekend just gone. Old Scotch knocked out Scobbs in the elimination final, winning by 23 points. Interesting query there, Rob and Clay. Scobbs rested a number of players in the last round before a pre-finals bye, and then the final itself. So 2 weeks off for resting players. has not paid dividends. I always question whether that's the right mantra to take going into finals footy. I think you just play your best team and roll on. So probably ruining that decision there. And then Old Brighton defeated Old Zabs by 33 points. Now, scoreline does not reflect the game there, which was very tight. It was the Zabs leading by a point at quarter time, then 5 points at half time. Old Brighton leading by 1 point at three-quarter time. And then basically late, sort of middle to late stages of that game, they blew the roof off it. And Felix Flockhart was pretty hard to contain, which he's been certainly hard to contain from a Blacks perspective in previous games we've played against them. But Rob, probably some of the real big results from a finals perspective, B grade. We've often spoken about B grade prelim being the game of the BAFA. It's two teams fighting for the Premier Division next season. You'll often see it being a better game than the grand final because teams lay it all on the line. Maybe until yesterday. Old Ivanhoe going in as strong favourites against Caulfield, but Caulfield went absolute bang. Won by 59 points and will be rejoining Premier in 2026. After, Rob, you might know a little bit better than me, maybe about 3-4 years away from the Premier Division there for Caulfield. So they will be coming back.
I think they went down in 2022.
Yep, I'll back you in there. I reckon it's been around that. So big second half was the difference. It was only maybe a couple goals at half time in the favour of Caulfield, but they absolutely dominated that third quarter. So Ivanhoe go from top of the ladder to out in straight sets and another year in Prem B after compiling a pretty handy list, you might say, for this season with the aim of trying to get back up. So I'm sure they're licking their wounds. But Rob and Clay, that result just continued to go throughout the BAFA final series this weekend, because in C grade, there was another big upset. So Ajax have won by 45 points over Parkdale. It was all over in the first quarter, all she wrote. It was Parkdale 1 straight 6 to 6-5-41 from Ajax. So that's the old Richmond, Adelaide territory when Cochin decided to kick against the wind, which was maybe not the right option there. Probably even worse than what we saw with Ivanhoe. Parkdale were top of the ladder as well. They'd only lost one game for the whole season. So one loss for the season, now out in straight sets. So I can imagine there's probably some sore heads in Parkdale today, because I'm assuming they've probably decided that copious amounts of beer might help sort out what was a disappointing day for them. But I can't help but think they'll be reflecting on the season that could have been. And then, Rob, you sort of think, oh, well, okay, that's a pretty big shock. But I've got a bigger shock, which is Div 1. Ormond have been undefeated for the whole season. They then go on to lose the grand final to Old Peninsula today by 74 points. So you go undefeated through the season and then get absolutely walloped on final day. Now, Nathan Jones, ex-Melbourne footballer, has been playing the second half of the season there with Old Peninsula. Ran absolute rampant. Kicked 7 goals. I haven't been able to get confirmation if he won the medal for best on ground, but you'd think 7 goals probably gives you a pretty good shot at doing so. So clearly a great pickup for them midway through the season that's seen them get that premiership success. And now is that classic, what will both teams do in Prem C? Will Ormond sort of lick their wounds and come back and be pretty competitive in Prem C? And where does that leave Old Peninsula? Finally, Rob, a classic in Div 2, grand final, St Mary's Salesians win by 3 points over the Old Yarra Cobras, 7-13-55 to 8-10-58. Something about good kicking, good football. Put that in there. But incredible. How tight was the last quarter? Well, this is how tight it was, guys. No one kicked a goal. Only behinds. only behinds in the last quarter. There was a no goal rule clearly installed by both teams, which they both adhered to. So that was an incredible one. Off the back of, I think a couple of weeks ago mentioned that they had a really incredible first semi-final as well, which I think was decided by a couple of points. And finally, to round out VAFA, Div 3 powerhouse. Well, this season they were a powerhouse. They absolutely completed that and capped it off with the grand final win by 84 points today. So plenty of celebrations there at Powerhouse. So plenty happening in the VAFA. I think that leaves us with prelim final in A grade and grand finals in Prem B and Prem C, which will be interesting to see what happens there. All of those other divisions completed. But I will also mention, just as a little sneaky one, I did catch on the live stream a bit of the VAFA Under-19s Premier prelim final, Uni Blues versus Gob. And it was an incredible game. It went to extra time. At one stage in the back half of that last quarter, Scobs were up by 27 points. Blues clawed their way back. Then with about 20 seconds left, Scobs took a mark up forward, or maybe, sorry, I think the shot was taken with 20 seconds left, I should clarify, in the last quarter. Scobs player kicked it, which the commentators were saying maybe would have been better off kicking a point and keeping it down that end. But he kicked the goal, ball went back to the middle, and with 20 seconds left on the clock, the Uni Blues managed to get it up forward, take a mark in the pocket, not take a mark in the pocket, take a mark up forward 50, booted it in. It was repelled on the goal line, and then an in-back free kick right in the pocket. And one of those classic ones, Rob, and Clay, where just didn't siren went, so weren't allowed to play on. So the old snap around the corner becomes much more difficult when you can't open up the angle. Not for the Uni Blues player who made it look like an absolute cinch. And then they went into extra time, 5 minutes each way, with Scobs getting the result in there by about a goal and a little bit extra. So, yeah, pretty incredible game for their showpiece there in the under-19s. Played under lights too.
Awesome summary. There's a lot there. There's a lot going on in the VAFA. I am very surprised to see Caulfield back in A grade. We've said B grade in the VAFA was a lion's den all year, and Caulfield would not have been my second pick. I thought Trinity would come up. I thought Ivanhoe were a decent chance. I would have had Carey and Ivanhoe well ahead of Caulfield. So well done them. I can't say I'm really looking forward to going back to that ground next to the racecourse next year, but anyway. And the only other thing that really caught my eye in that lot is that Ormond Old Peninsula Grand Final. Since when has there been a grand final ever played between two teams whose colours are blue and brown? It is a disgusting combination, and the two clubs in the VAFA that wear those colours happen to be the two in the grand final. Almost identical jumpers, those two teams, blue and brown. Anyway, disgusting. Well done to Old Peninsula. Can't help but think that Nathan Jones has got them over the line there. But fair play. Well done to the Pirates, I believe, Old Peninsula.
Yep.
Yeah, correct. Good nickname.
Very good.
Clay, what's caught your eye? I reckon I've got a fair hunch what it might be. But
yes, definitely. So you and I went into the Central Highlands Football League Grand Final yesterday on Saturday. So it was a Mars Stadium in Ballarat. So it's great to see a local football team playing at an AFL grade stadium. You don't get that every day. It's a bit of a construction site at the moment, putting in some new stands to actually get some more fans into the AFL. So half the ground was in use, but all grandstands all the way around. So Skipton Emus, which is another nice, unusual team mascot. You don't get too many emus. I don't know any other emus. So you boys know.
No, I don't.
We know, but that's the first time I'm aware of. So they wear the red jumper with a blue and white V on top. Playing the Dalesford Bulldogs. Dalesford was the premiers last year, so it was going to be hot competition. First of all, in the lead up to the grand final, it was great to see decorations all over the town. So the servo, the supermarket, the primary school, streamers, balloons, blue, red and white all over the town. There were some professionally made up tin signs posted on fences around town. The local primary school had on their fence big crate banners with photos of all the players and the whole lot. So it was great to see that sort of spirit around the town, which I suspect you don't get on the sort of the city leagues or the city clubs. You wouldn't have that same community spirit around a club. So I think that's a really nice thing that we get with country football out this way. And I'm wondering too how many leagues would have their grand final, not necessarily at a big ground like Mars Stadium, being the AFL quality, but you've got Princess Park, Maryborough, QEO, and Bendigo, which Princess Park wasn't used this year anyway. But I just wonder what the rate of clubs having their venue for a grand final at a big, nice independent spot rather than, say, Trenton beat Carisbrook, playing at Carisbrook, where you're just playing at the home team, home ground of one of the teams. So getting out to the grand final for Skipton yesterday, it's their first premiership in the Central Highlands League. So they were in the Lexham Plains League originally, which folded circa 2010. So it's been a fair drought for them since their last premiership. So the win yesterday, 15 goals 12, 102 to Daylesford, 10, 11, 71. So convincing win in the end. It was a slow start. Skipton kicked the first goal, and then Daylesford had all the ball for the next 10 minutes or so. It looked like quite a nervous start for both teams, a little bit sort of scrappy and tumbling around the ground and kicks going to the opposition and just turning over backwards and forwards. So I was wondering what sort of game we'd turn out to get. But after those initial nerves wore off, it was an absolute cracking game, really good quality. So Skipton Daylesford kicked the next couple of goals. But after that, it was an absolute goal fest. So quarter time, Skipton led 6-2-38 to Daylesford 4-3-27. So got a 10-goal first quarter and looking really high skilled through that quarter. Through the second quarter, it was very low scoring from both teams, but Daylesford did look the far better team. So Skipton only kicked 3 or 4 points. Daylesford a couple of goals on top of that. It was all tied up, 43 points all at half time. Halfway through the third quarter, Daylesford were 2 goals up and looking really good at that point. Skipton were looking quite flat and not looking defeated, but certainly Daylesford looked like they had the good run of the game at that point. So halfway through the third quarter there, we had Jesse Palmer, number 55. He took a great mark, about 45 degrees out, not far off the 50 line, kicked the goal, and that really sparked Skipton up. From then on, they kicked the next 7 goals in a row, including 5 from Palmer, who was best on ground in the end. So in the end, it turned out to be quite a fair victory for Skipton, fighting back from behind into the third quarter there. It was quite dark at the ground. Rob and I were sort of questioning whether they should have had the lights on. I think if it was a cricket match, it would have been called off. So we're not quite sure why the lights went on, given that we're at a premier sort of venue and they've got that good option there. Anyway, it was just about dark by the end of it, but didn't seem to matter in the end. So no, we had a cracking day out, and it's good to see the local team get up.
The Central Highlands budget clearly didn't run to turning the lights on. It was really dark. It was a classic Ballarat afternoon, cold, windy, big, thick clouds. But as Clay said, awesome day out. And I was very, very impressed with the standard of the football. I thought it was really good. Jesse Palmer, best on ground, was a magnet up forward. Yeah. Looked really dangerous. One of those classic country footballers who just could take a pack mark and go back and kick the goal from 50. He was really good. And, well done, Skipton. So first premiership since 2010, is that right?
Yeah, 2010 was the last one in the Lexham Plains League.
Yeah.
It's interesting, no lights, because I think the other thing that we noticed in a few other games that we've been looking at this weekend is when it's grand final time as well, that the start times alter a little bit from what would be a normal weekend footy, because they're doing presentations for the game beforehand, and then that pushes back the start time for the next game. So if anything, you think it'd be more logical in grand final time that you might need the lights later on in the senior game, because they've probably started a good 30 to 45 minutes later than what they normally would on a regular weekend. So strange decision there, but it was great to get the reporting from the both of you yesterday as to the A standard of the league, but B also how good the game was. I think any time you've got a team kicking over 100 in a game, especially a grand final, I think that's a sign of a pretty good game at the end of the day. Albeit, I'm sure Dalesford fans probably don't agree, given they were on the receiving end of the loss. But no, that's great.
Didn't feel quite as bad for Dalesford, who did win it last year, of course, in the Central Highlands League. So they look pretty shattered, but yeah, they put up a good fight. All right, I'm going to take you down to the Surf Coast, guys. So we've been following the Bellarine League a little bit, which is to some extent considered the second tier of the AFL Barwon system down there with the Geelong League. We know that the top two teams in that Bellarine League have taken the decision not to go up to the Geelong League. They have not taken the offered promotion. One of those teams was Geelong Amateurs. Geelong Amos topped the ladder with a 15-3 record. Another story, we're going to have a few of these stories today, where a side's had a really strong home and away season and fallen over at the end, right at the final hurdle. I'm really happy about this result, guys, because I spent a bit of time in Anglesea as a kid. It's a really nice place. I think the club is a really nice footy club, and they have managed to pull off a steal for the ages in this grand final. So Anglesea finished the season 10-7-1 draw, so fifth on the ladder, and they've managed to come home and beat the top place Geelong Amos in the grand final. Anglesea absolutely hit form right at the end of the season. They had wins of 79, 42 and 39 points in their final series on the way to the grand final. And absolutely this was a club with a point to prove, given that they got belted in last year's grand final by 10 goals by Torquay. Now, that's got to be up there with Collingwood losing to Carlton in a grand final. Those two sides right next to each other down there. I don't imagine that was a good feeling for Anglesea to lose to Torquay. Geelong Amos had 2 weeks off in the finals, thanks to finishing on top and then winning their first. So I do wonder whether they just lost a bit of momentum there, whereas Anglesea clearly got on a hot run of form and they took that form into the grand final, whereas Geelong Amos hadn't taken their season's momentum into the grand final in quite the same way. Looked like a pretty good game. Ebbed and flowed there, the Roos dominating the first half to lead by 18 points at half-time before Geelong Amos piled on 6 goals in the third quarter to lead by a goal at the final change. That proved not to be the premiership quarter, however, for the Amos, as Anglesea came home with a 4-goal-1 final term to win the game by 13 points. Well done, Anglesea, their 5th Bellarine League premiership and the first one for 26 years. So good on them. Very happy to see some success down there for the Kangaroos.
That's a good one, Rob. I was going to mention that I know in last year's podcast we were talking about Anglesea potentially stealing that one. They'd somewhat not necessarily come from that far back compared to this season, but just off the basis of I think they'd beaten Torquay in that qualifying final by a goal or so to get themselves straight into the granny, and that was a little bit of an upset given how strong Torquay were last season. It's nice to see that they've backed it up again. Not something that is done all that well across in the AFL, as we know. We haven't seen too many teams back up a grand final loss in the AFL by making it even to the grand final or even the finals again. But good to see that Anglesea have managed to get that done. So well done to them there. Rob and Clay, I'm going to take us to, if you haven't watched the podcast before, a league that we talk about incessantly. Some would think that we may get sponsored by this league. We talk about them so much. We don't. There's no kickbacks yet, but we're happy to have any conversations with the Ovens and Murray League if they want to do so. But they had their prelim final today gentlemen, and we've got a huge one next week because based off the result today, we have a grand final Wang Derby. So the two Wangaratta teams, it's a Wang off. It's a Wang off. That's what it is. It's the Wangaratta Rovers who won their way through last week, coming up against the Wang Magpies, who have equally done it the hard way, the Wang Magpies. They finished just in the finals in that 5th spot and have come from the elimination final all the way through to where they now sit in a grand final. They knocked off Myrtleford today by 15 points in the prelim. I'll say it again, good kicking is good football. There was the same amount of scoring shots for both teams, but it was Myrtleford 12-11-83 to the Wang Magpies 15-8-98. So sometimes, you rue the kicking that you do. Now, I'm reliably informed the first grand final Wang off since 1977. Which I think was a little bit of a surprise when you and I were chatting through that stat just a little bit earlier, Rob, that it is the first time they've met in a grand final since that time, given especially the strength of both teams over the last 4 or 5 years, that they haven't met before this season. So in terms of results for this year, they've split 1-1. The Wang Magpies won the opening round of the season. And then later on in the season, the Rovers took the win. So I reckon it should be an absolute cracker. The coverage of this grand final last year, where the Rovers upset the Yarrawonga Pigeons to win, was second to none. I think I'd watched the Ballarat League the day before, and I thought, oh, this is incredible coverage. I don't think anything will top this. And then I watched a live stream of the Ovens and Murray game the next day, and I went, well, okay, sorry, Ballarat League, you've just been topped in the space of 24 hours. So I'm looking forward to, don't get me wrong, I would look forward to going and watching this game there in being played in Lavington. Maybe a little bit too far away to justify a one-off trip. So I think I might be watching this one on the live stream, and I reckon it'll be an absolute cracker.
If the Hoppers were in it, you'd go, Pete.
If the Hoppers were in it, I would put on all of my Hopper merch and I would be there.
Very good. Very good. Calling the pants off that one there, Pete. Nice work. So little reference for those who've seen the some of the Ovens and Murray League coverage on Facebook. There's an absolute cracking video out there of old mate calling the footy and calling the pants off it. Now, Clay, you didn't mention in your introduction that you're a North Melbourne supporter. Now that's understandable.
Yes, try to keep that under wraps usually.
But one of your heroes was playing in a grand final in the country this week. Take us there. Tell us about
Absolutely. So, North Melbourne fan, been a tough 25 years or maybe more. No, 25 years. Yes, safe for making a couple of prelims around 2014 or thereabouts. It's been pain most years. But as you say, one of my heroes growing up, Brent Harvey, absolutely fantastic player and just such a likeable character. I don't think there'd be anyone in the league who'd be a neutral fan who'd say too much negative stuff about Brent Harvey. So he's kitted up for Trentham this year. They have had an absolute cracking year, finishing on top of the ladder at 242%. They made it through to their granny yesterday against Carisbrook, playing that in Carisbrook, who finished on 3rd place this year, 232%. So both of them have had an absolute powerhouse of a year. Harvey, at 47 years old, now I didn't see any footage yesterday from the game. However, I've seen photos and playing and videos through the year. He would be the fittest man on the whole park and 10 years older than most of them, if not more. He's still in great shape. It looks like he could pull on the AFL jumper and get out there tomorrow and not look out of place at all. Now, with apologies to Brandon Weatherson, who's been on the show earlier this year, the coach of Carisbrook. Unfortunately, it wasn't their day. Trentham getting the win 8-6-54 to Carisbrook's 5-13-43. And as Bissell said earlier, And we hear it most weeks, good kicking is good football. At the same number of scoring shots, at correction, 14 scoring shots to Trentham versus Carisbrook's 18 scoring shots. So they really had an opportunity to get up there and were well and truly beaten in a fairly low scoring match there. So potentially some good opportunities that were missed to get a win there. Harvey with 2 goals in the drought-breaking premiership, so it was just their second ever. It's about 31 years since their previous and only other premiership, so they'll be well and truly celebrating after that one.
I know the real big issue that we've been discussing in the recent weeks, Rob, was who gets the home rooms, Carisbrook or Trentham? I mean, Trentham finished on top, so I might need to send Weather a message and just ask what rooms they utilise. That's awesome work by Trentham, but that's the real issue I want sorted out, was what rooms were they in? But it's a good wrap up there, Clay. And as we've said a few times, good kicking is good football. Four more scoring shots, and they're on the receiving end of a loss. So yeah, you can only imagine that Brandon might be reflecting back on that game and where it might have gone wrong.
Personally, I never liked Brent Harvey. He kicked 4 goals against Collingwood on my 11th birthday to beat them by 2 points, and I've never forgiven him.
And that in itself was an incredible story from memory, Rob, that I think you brought to the table earlier this season, where he just met some blokes that were out camping or something, did he not? And
he just met some blokes up on the Murray fishing, and they became good. I think he's got a cabin up there somewhere on the Murray, and the next door neighbours that he was fishing with turned out to play for Trentham. And at a certain point, they said you should come down and have a kick.
Well,
and he's done a bit more than that. He's won a flag. Yeah.
Incredible.
How many flags did he win at North Melbourne? Did he play in the 99 grand final?
Yeah, he played 99. I'm not sure about 96. That might
96. Have been so he's now won the same number of premierships. Same number of premierships at Trentham as he did at North Melbourne. There you go. Probably played more finals. No, maybe not quite.
I was noting too on the looking at the player points, which I don't know how much you want to read into what they're worth. He was the only player with 4 points on the whole team, and they were about 10 or 12 under their maximum they could have played.
Yeah, right.
Versus Carisbrook, I think they were only 2 or 3 under. So potentially an undermanned side in that regard, and they've well and truly got up.
Yeah, that's
a really
incredible.
Good stat. Yeah,
I think also, and we might have mentioned this as well, but you sometimes tend to forget that it wasn't too long ago that Brent Harvey, playing local footy, had a really horrific break in his leg that he's come back from as well, which you certainly see players that have that horrific break that just never look the same. But to Clay's point, I saw some pictures of him during the season as well. He looked like a beast. Like he looked like he hasn't lost any. Maybe he looks fitter than what he did in the AFL. I don't know. He looked incredible from what I saw of him this season.
Yeah, I reckon he spent his downtime with a broken leg doing arm day every day.
I think you're right. Yeah, he looks like a beast, as you said. Very good. Nice work, Clay. All right, so I'm going to go Northwest. I've enjoyed very much looking at the North Central League this year. There's been lots of good games up there. I'm excited to report that Calder United are the North Central Football Netball League senior premiers. It's very impressive by them in their first season as the Calder United Lions. Now, as reported last time we had an episode, the merged sides in Calder United Lions are Witcherproof, Narraport and Nullarbor. Witcherproof Narraport won the premiership in 1964 in their first year as a merged club, and we said it would be really poetic justice or poetically interesting in some ways if Calder United were able to do the same thing, and they have. They have got the job done in the grand final, defeating Birchip Watcham 11-14-80 to 10-10-70. So a nice close one there. That looks like a very, very good game. Another team falling over at the line in Birchip Watcham. I've put it here as a bit of a stunning fall from grace. They were 16-0 in the home and away season before losing twice in the final series to Calder United. An interesting additional bit of history that I found out doing some research on Wikipedia mostly is that Witcherproof Narraport won 19 premierships in the North Central League, and that makes them the most successful club in North Central history. Nullarbor also won 19 premierships, although they've never won one in the North Central League. They won all of their premierships in a combination of the old Tyrrell District League, which doesn't exist anymore, the Southern Mallee Football League and the Mallee Football League and the Golden Rivers League. So they have really played in a lot of different leagues. They only played for 2 seasons in the North Central League before merging into the Corley United Lions. So 19 premierships each, and now I guess a 20th for each of them, depending how you look at it. But in any case, well done, Corley United Lions. 61 years after which approved Narraport's first ever flag, they are back on the board. Going to be a very big couple of weeks up there, I reckon, in the Southern Mallee. They will be very happy with that. And Birchip Watcham, yeah, no good. They were the strongest team all year by far, and this is coming up quite a bit in this episode already, that we've got teams that are very strong through the home and away season that couldn't get it done on grand final day.
I noticed
an interesting thing I saw during the week, and now this is from the AFL, but I was wondering how we could translate that to local football, and sort of been touched on a little bit there. So Adelaide this year, 5 losses through the year for a total losing margin of 51 points combined through the whole year. 2 finals, losing margin of 58 points combined. So I'm just wondering how many teams really smash it through the year, but then fall short at this point.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Stat. Yeah,
it's a really good point. It's something that I think, I don't know whether this is, it feels like from the weekend results we've had, it's happened a lot this weekend. It's happened a hell of a lot this weekend. Maybe it happens every year like that, but it just feels like there's been a lot of teams that have been up and about. And I think it just goes to show that, yeah, you only got to get it done on one day, don't you? And you only need to have everything go right that one day. And then I also wonder with some of these teams like a Birchip Watcham that, you know, won all of their games, that when things start to go wrong, there's a level of panic set in. You know, there's a level of panic start to like, oh, this isn't going right. You know, our structure doesn't look as good as it has in previous games, and then everything just sort of breaks down. I do wonder whether that's the case, but yeah, it's a really good pickup, Clay. It's certainly something we're seeing a lot of. The other thing I noticed was Calder United, coached by Darryl Wilton. Now, Darryl Wilton is a very famous coach in Bendigo scene, having coached Strathfield Say to, I believe, a three-peat in that. I think about around that 2013, 2014, 2015 era, similar to the Hawthorn three-peat. So a very well-known, very good coach. And we'd also spoken about, there's a bit of, you know, don't lie, I think there's a bit of cash going around in that North Central League. It got stars galore across a number of teams, not just the 2 in the grand final. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Birchip Watcham do in the off season. You might need to watch them closely.
Yeah.
I can hear crickets. It's not even cricket season.
That's fine. Look, I'll fill in the crickets and move us to a league that we'd spoken a little bit about, and Rob and I had the opportunity earlier in the year to go to a game in the Riddle District Footy League. They had their grand final on the weekend, and boys, do we believe in miracles? Because Riddle Creek absolutely needed one. 10 minutes to go in the last quarter of the grand final. They are 17 points down to Macedon. And what they found out is that miracles and good luck very much do exist. So what can only be described as a leg break that Shane Warne would be proud of triggered a premiership winning surge for the Bombers. They, from that off break, or leg break, sorry, managed to pour on 6 goals to come from the clouds and win back-to-back flags, 13-13-91 to 12-6-78 to break the hearts of the Macedon Cats there at Romsey Park. So, Do we believe in miracles? Well, I reckon the Riddle boys might be, because it's not often that you see. It's just one of those unique features of our game, though, isn't it? We play with a ball that is an odd shape, and every now and again, it can take a very unique bounce. The one that comes to mind for me is an AFL one, which you might or may not remember, but I think might have even been in a derby, Adelaide versus Port, where Angus Monfries kicked the ball that was going dead set for the points, bounced on its point, and just rolled straight into the goals, which is absolutely outrageous. And that's clearly what's happened here in the Riddle League. But a really entertaining final series there, Robin Clay. There was some really good games across the board in that final series in the Riddle League. And it's resulted in a back-to-back premiership for the Riddle Bombers, when they probably thought they were a chance, but also thought it could be tough given the quality of the sides in it. So credit to them. I'm sure they've been celebrating nice and hard there in Riddles Creek.
Yeah, well done to the Bombers. A little bit heartbroken for Macedon. It would have been pretty extraordinary for Macedon to win that flag, given how the other teams in that league were looking. We never even gave Macedon any coverage throughout the year. We were focused on Diggers Rest, Riddle, Kyneton, Wallen.
Yep.
There were a lot of teams ahead of them in the pecking order that we were very excited about. Apologies to Macedon. They clearly were quite handy, and I'm a little bit gutted in the end that they didn't win it. But yeah, when we saw Riddle beat Kyneton, they did look strong. They had a good solid forward line and a pretty solid midfield. So
correct. And Dean Galea, that big full forward that does play for Riddle, had a very good grand final. I believe he kicked 5. So he looked like he would be a tough man to stop with the right delivery, and he proved so on grand final day.
Very good. All right. What do you got, Clay? Essendon.
Yeah, the Essendon District Football League. Couple of little points that I noticed happening in the league. It was interesting that I suppose 2 noteworthy events stuck out to me in the same league as I was having a look around. So first of all, every boy, man, everyone, as they're growing up, you dream about kicking a goal after the siren to win the game for your team. So Luca Moratore kicked the goal after the siren for Airport West, which has sent them into their first prelim since 2013. So not much better you can do than that, save for maybe doing it a couple of weeks later. So they've had an absolute belter there. And then Josh Cavalli for Hillside has kicked a goal in the final quarter of their premiership. So not only have they won the premiership, he's scored 100 goals for the season 2 years in a row, which has also promoted them to Premier Division. So they've had an absolute belter there as well. There's been some discussion earlier in the year about if your 100 goals counts, whether it's in the final series or the regular season. I think I do come down on the side of the fence that you should pull the pin once the finals are on. However, he's had a good day out still. And yeah, that's it for me for the Essendon District League.
As somebody whose dreams of kicking any number of goals faded very early, I think if you get to 100 goals at any point, you should raise the bat.
Outrageous. I won't have it. I won't have it. I won't have it at all. Do it in the regular season if you want the glory. If you give me 10 years, I could kick 100 goals. Well, maybe not. If you give me 40 years, I could kick 100 goals. Yeah, there's got to be a limit to it, I reckon, and it's got to be the exact same number of games that every other player has had the potential opportunity to play. Yeah, I you know, that's my feeling anyway. But we could argue about that offline.
The other thing that jumps to mind there, Airport West, I don't know of anybody else that plays in green and white stripes.
Oh, that's very rare.
Like North Melbourne or Collingwood jumper, but green instead of black or blue. Not a bad look. I don't mind it, I've got to say. I'm a fan of green on footy jumpers.
We normally see more with a V or some other sort of blocky shape, not so much the
stripes. Correct. I can think of Kangaroo Flat with the green jumper with the V and the kangaroo, but
they've got wings. They got wings like West Coast. Well, they used to. Do they not have that anymore? Not
For a
really a V, is it?
For a kangaroo. Huh?
Kangaroo flat. They've got like the panels like West Coast. Like,
Maybe. I never paid much attention when we played kangaroo flat. We were too busy beating them. So
that's fair. That's fair. All right. I'm going east. Mid Gippsland League. Foster Fish Creek. This is a Torquay Anglesea Collingwood Carlton style rivalry.
Yeah.
Those two towns right next to each other. I'm sure that whenever they play each other, it is a big event. Fish Creek, one of the most famous football clubs in Australia, going for their third Mid Gippsland League flag in a row. They hadn't lost a premiership bout since they joined the league. In fact, they were going for their 39th overall senior premiership, which would have continued to solidify them as the most successful senior football club in Victoria. Wasn't to be. Foster got home in the end in the grand final by 11 points, 12-7, 79 to 9-14, 68. Another classic example of bad kicking is bad football there from Fish Creek, who are called the Kangaroos rather than the Fish, which I've always seen as a little bit odd. They're Fish Creek, they wear South Melbourne jumpers and they're called the Kangaroos. Make of that what you will. Lachlan Rathjen kicked 4 goals for the Tigers. That's a great effort in the grand final. That is Foster's 17th senior premiership. First in the Mid Gippsland League. They only joined it in 2022 with Fish Creek from the now defunct Alberton League. And interestingly, looking back through the history books, the last time Foster beat Fish Creek in a grand final was 1938. They won that game by about 90 points. So that was a pretty one-sided day. This is an interesting scenario, a little bit like the two Wang teams not having played each other very often in grand finals. I was very surprised that these two quite successful clubs have not played very often in grand finals over the years. So Fish Creek had beaten Foster in 3 grand finals since 1938. But yeah, only 4 grand finals since then. Between those two, or 5 now, Fish Creek winning most of them, and Foster getting one back this time. So well done to the Foster Tigers.
Very well done there. Always good beating Fish Creek because that is a premiership winning machine, that team. So I think you've always got to be up and about to beat that club. And I was seeing some scores for that game throughout yesterday, and it also felt like it wasn't one, it was both ways. It was topsy-turvy. I think Fish Creek had a really good opportunity in the third quarter to get themselves in front, but credit to Foster, who fought really hard in that last quarter to come over the top and end up victorious.
Very good, yeah. Yep, good point. You're taking us, I think, out west.
Yeah, I'm going to take us out west, and I'm going to take us to as good as football can be at times and how much we love it. Sometimes the ugly side of football rears its head. And so I'm taking us out to the Wimmera Footy League, where it's become country footy's Wild West at the minute, with the chairman taking the unprecedented step of stepping down midway through the final series immediately. Now, there's a bit behind this. The first part that really took place is there was a scoring bungle, not this weekend, but the weekend before, in the A-grade netball final. Now, within that, what happened was they went into extra time in that A-grade netball final, where it was then Southern Mallee who won that extra time and defeated Ararat, only for the video footage to show that they actually shouldn't have gone to extra time at all because Ararat had actually won by a goal at the end of regular time. Now, the league ruling was that the score sheets had been signed and confirmed, and that's what they have to go on, as opposed to a video referral to overturn that result. So the result remained the same, that they basically said Southern Mallee have been confirmed the winners of that game against Ararat in the netball. Now, Rob, we saw this in one of our episodes, or maybe a month or a little bit ago, where there was a football game where they realised that results were wrong, and I believe they actually turned that result back, and based off video referral, actually decided no, this team has won. So interesting, slightly different take there from the league of the board there of the Wimmera. But there's also been a little bit of an interesting sideshow happening with arguably the competition's best player in former Carlton utility Tom Williams. Now, he was able to play on the prelim final against Nil on the weekend just gone. And potentially they won that game on the weekend, so he potentially might also be playing in the grand final this coming weekend, while an alleged vilification of an opposition player plays out behind closed doors. So there's an investigation occurring at the moment around the game 2 weekends ago with Tom Williamson, where he was yellow carded twice, and very similar to, which I didn't really know, I'm sure it must be a rule in other leagues, but it is the exact same rule as soccer, that 2 yellow cards equals a red card, and you are off for the rest of the game. Now, the first yellow card was for a rough conduct that he accepted a reprimand for during the week from the tribunal. The second yellow card is around this vilification incident that is still playing out behind closed doors, and therefore no penalty has been given at such a stage. Certainly, that's all of that in turn with the netball A grade scoring, and I think clearly just a lack of trust between clubs and the board there of the Wimmera Football Netball League caused a bit of a kerfuffle in the fact that they actually needed police escort after 2 weekends ago for Wimmera League officials and umpires at the semi-final to get off the ground and get back to where they needed to be safely. And that led to Chairman Billy Balla calling it quits, and Bart Turgoose is in as the acting chairman there for the league, and has since called for some common sense and calmer heads to prevail. But I'm not sure whether that's going to happen. There feels like there's some real incensed people here in that league. But we never like hearing that police escorts are required for league officials and umpires to get off the ground or to do what they need to do post-match. One of the things that I think is interesting, and I'm just wondering whether they've sort of set themselves up a little bit here for some failings, is other major leagues across Victoria release match review panel decisions and hold open tribunal hearings. The Wimmera does not. The Wimmera don't release anything from that perspective, and everything is done behind closed door. I feel like that has somewhat led to some of this. So I think this is a bit of a watch and see. The last thing you would want to happen is Tom Williamson plays in a grand final and then post-grand final is suspended for some form of vilification or punished for some form of vilification. So, bit to play out there in the Wimmera League, not what we want to see. It really seems like they've got a lot of work to do in the off-season to really, I think, get back on the same page between league and clubs and try and create harmony moving forward. Because as we've seen with the Bendigo Footy League, Rob and Clay, it only takes league and clubs fighting for your league to suffer in terms of competitiveness. And I'm sure Wimmera don't want it to go down that pathway.
No, it's a league where clubs are already merging and drifting off to other leagues and don't need any carnage like that, and especially not ruining a final series, which was otherwise shaping up to be quite interesting. And it's a real shame when the off-field stuff is what ends up being talked about rather than the on-field performances, which we enjoy so much.
Yep.
So yeah, good summary there, mate. And it's shame. It's a shame. Let's hope they can sort that out, and let's hope that Tom hasn't done anything too bad, and we'll get to play in that grand final, and everybody can move on the better for it. All right, Clay, were you having a look at the Ovens and King?
Yeah, a little bit of look at that way. So I had my own Michael Newton for a few weeks. So he's had an absolute belter of a year. Now we're talking about if the 100 goals counts in the finals or not. Doesn't matter for this bloke because he's well and truly past it by the finals coming around. 151 goals this year. That is astonishing. If anyone's kicked more than that, I'd love to see it. That is a big number. So playing for Royale in the Ovens and King League, they were knocked out in the prelim against Greta. They finished on top of the ladder this year and comfortably beat Royale throughout the year twice. So Royale's had an interesting year. They finished on 118%, very up and down. They've had some big wins going their way, and they've absolutely been flogged in other games as well. So looking back to the start of the year, they lost to Bright 124-14. Now Bright ended up being second place on the ladder, so you can forgive that a little bit. They have had big wins towards the end of the year, so just bringing it up, my apologies. So they've had a good run home, I think, this year. I think they were probably struggled early, so they've beaten Moyu 126-59. They did beat Bright, my apologies, towards the end of the year, 83-78. They smashed North Wangaratta 136-63. Beat Benalla All Blacks 150-56. So going back through the start of the year, they copped some big losses, but then clawed it back towards the end of the year, finishing on 5th place. So losing in the prelim, I think they were perhaps lucky to actually make it that far, given the up and down nature of their year. Anyway, so Greta is off to the grand final next week, and Warrell is out, but that puts an end to Michael Newton's run of 151 goals this year.
Incredible. 151 is amazing. We need to look up where Mason McGarity finished off. He passed the 100 second, I think. I think Michael Newton was first and Mason was second, and then Jason Wells, I think, was third. So they'd be the three that I'd be having a look at. The Ovens and King premiership was Bright in the end. Yeah, they got the job done over Greta. Just a couple more from me to finish off. Just a couple of quick round the grounds. I did see that Kiwa Sandy Creek won their 14th Toolangatta District Premiership, defeating Barnawatha. Connor Newnham kicked 7 goals in that win. Fantastic effort, Connor. 7 goals definitely gets you a best on ground in the grand final. That was a big win, 101-35. And over in the Horsham District League, we did talk a bit about Harrow Balmoral, I should say. They had their record winning streak broken earlier this season, but that has not dented their premiership chances at all. They ended up winning the grand final over Narrajua Kwantong 10-7-67 to 2-11-23. Absolutely shocking kicking there by Narrajua Kwantong in the grand final. So definitely not the kind of kicking in front of goal that's going to get the job done on any day, but especially not in a grand final. Well done, Harrow Balmoral, who win their 3rd flag in a row. And a final one that I wanted to get to, yet another falling over at the final hurdle in a very spectacular way. This is up in the Pecola League, the famous Not On Play HQ, not AFL Vic aligned Pecola League. It is Catamatite who have won the premiership, including with AFL star Tom Cleary. They've beaten Waiea. Thanks for the pronunciation advice. I still don't really know if I'm saying that right. But Waiea was 16-0 in the home and away season. And then they won their first 2 finals as well, pretty comfortably. So they were 18-0 for the season before imploding on the big stage in the grand final haven't got the margin in front of me here. I don't think it was very big. I think it was about 20 points, something like that. But regardless, they couldn't get the job done, and Catamatite are the premiers in the Picola District Football Netball League. Their fourth flag and only the first since 2001. So a quarter century break there just about for premierships for Catamatite. Well done them. And it's a pretty substantial wrap up, I reckon, there of grand finals around the state. Now, paddock to premiership, I'm the only one with a team left in the paddock to premiership because, I slotted an extra pick in. So that's completely well played by me. So I can just no, look, Pete's already covered a bit in the B grade wrap up for the VAFA. Old Trinity were my paddock to premiership tip. They had a very strong first semi-final win over Old Ivanhoe, who ended up bowing out in straight sets, as you said, Pete. And OTs will play Caulfield in the grand final with Old Trinity and Caulfield going up to A grade for 2026. So that's the paddock to premiership scenario. Clay, I think you might have to get on that bandwagon for next season.
Yes, it feels a bit bandwagony when my local team has won the premiership, but I'm keen to follow and see how they go next year.
No, you should just claim it. I just picked a team that was top of the ladder because none of my picks were doing any well. Any good, I mean.
Yeah. In saying that, Rob, the last time Caulfield and Old Trinity played, Caulfield did win. So a little bit of a danger game there for Old Trinity. I don't think they can roll into that one thinking that they've got it all sorted. I also just depressingly, and I say depressingly, looked at the amount of goals Michael Newton kicked versus the amount of goals that the University Blacks kicked as a club. I'm happy to report that we managed to get him by 7 goals. Take that, Michael Newton.
I'm going to say the collective quality of the VAFA A grade defensive units are a little bit stronger than what Michael Newton was facing.
I would have thought so.
And just quickly too, you mentioned Mason McGarity. I just brought him up here. He finished on 112 for the year, so a good year, but not quite near it.
Yep.
No, that's way behind 151. Still a very good year.
Rubbish.
Good year.
Rubbish. Reserves for him next year, I reckon.
We'll take him down to the Blacks if he's looking for a vaccine.
The other one I just wanted to touch on, Rob, is it's just off the back of what has happened this weekend. We've seen a lot of teams that have been the clear favourites that have dominated all season and then lost in the grand final. This coming Saturday, the Murray Football League, it's a big watch on the road. The road have been absolutely dominant for the last couple of seasons. It's a big watch on them taking on Cobram, who only lost to Congupna by 5 points in the final round of the season, round 18. Cobram just lost by 5 points to the road. They now meet each other in the grand final. Cobram having come from the elimination final to end up there. Just a watch to see if Congupna can buck the trend of what we've seen most strong, dominant teams doing this weekend and get the win. But also quite incredible from a Cobram perspective because in round 7 earlier this season, they lost by 104 points to Congupna. So they've managed to shave 99 points off that margin for round 18. If they shave another 99 points off that margin in the grand final, then the beers will be flowing in Cobram.
Or did Congupna just leave a few by the roadside in the final round, Pete?
Trickets.
I think Congupna are going to get the job done there. They've been far and away the strongest team, stronger than Waiea were, stronger than Ormond were. I think they've got it covered.
Finished with the percentage of 417.
Handy.
But grand final day, what was the Alistair Clarkson? No, was it Alistair Clarkson or I think it might have been Alistair Clarkson. Was it around Geelong? If it bleeds, you can kill it. Just never be too sure.
Pretty hard to kill a road, I would have thought. I think roads don't often bleed, but yeah. Anyway.
They have lots of potholes.
Yeah, well, they do. They do in Central Victoria for sure. I found Jason Wells here back on the goal kickers. He's kicked 145, so that's pretty good. But 9 of those have been in the finals.
Okay.
So 134 for the home and away season. 136, sorry, 136 for the home and away season. Very impressive.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that just about wraps us up, I reckon, for this week. It's another big week of grand finals. We've had a lot of the District League grand finals this weekend. Coming up, we have a lot of the so-called Major League grand finals. Bendigo, Ballarat, Geelong. A lot of the suburban leagues we'll cover next week. Western, Northern. Can Heidelberg win 5 in a row? That's the big question we can answer next week. All of that coming up for you next week. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for joining us, Clay. Welcome aboard. And we hope that your team, figuratively speaking, at this time of the year, gets the 4 points, or more specifically, brings home the Premiership Cup. Have a good week, and we'll see you then.